It's like this old sort of kind of wisdom website thing, and it was talking about a lot of Native American tribes call the trees the standing people.
Planet Guitar is delighted today to welcome Duncan Lloyd.
Hello, nice to meet you.
We're approaching the 20th anniversary of Maxïmo Park's first single, The Coast Is Always Changing. How do you feel about that landmark?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the years have gone very quickly, to be honest. If I think about it now, it seems strange, 20 years ago. I remember as a kid just, thinking, in the 90s that the 70s seemed, so long ago. So time seems to shrink as you get older. So I mean, it's a great feeling that we're still, kind of putting records out and making music sort of together and individually. I think that was something that we all wanted to do, become musicians and make it work. And so yeah, just thinking way back till then, I remember very fond memories of that being recorded with Paul Epworth, and we all went down to London from Newcastle and recorded that and another song the night I lost my head. So we sort of did I think it was a double A side or something for Warp Records, and seeing the early designs for it, and it really felt like it was happening. So yeah, a lot of fun memories for that.
Things are a bit different to when you and Tom used to cram yourself into a small room with a washing machine to record and practice.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, actually, our rehearsal space has shrunk in half because of the rent, but it's not quite as small as that old that old room that we were in.
Maxïmo Park soon have a new album out, Stream of Life. Could you tell us about the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, well, we sort of decided it was time to make a new record, and I think for the most part, I think that, well, lyrically and the sort of the idea of Stream of Life, the title came from Paul. So he there's a lot of elements in there to do with, I guess, where we all are at this point in our lives. But also, yeah, just the sort of, I think, trying to find hope in things when you reach kind of a middle point in your life, and people have got kids and whatnot, and without it all, being quite so literal, I think it's a lot about sort of relationships now. Looking back to a degree, but also, trying to make the best of things now, and perhaps looking at society and with a right eye, I guess. You can sort of see the sort of lyrics there's a mixture of, sometimes it can feel like a little despairing at times, but then also there's this element of hope, and being on the edge of that there's sort of a strange kind of excitement to that. And I think that we wanted to put that down onto record.
You recorded the album mostly, I think, in Atlanta, Georgia. Why was that?
Well, the producer Ben Allen, he worked on our last record, but we were in lockdown at the time, so we sort of did most of the recording remotely. So a lot of the guitars I did at home, and the bass parts and things, and I would send them over to Ben, and he would either reamp them at the studio over there, and the drums were recorded in isolation in Liverpool. Paul did his vocal at home, so we just sent all the parts across to Ben, and he kind of assembled it. I mean, we based a lot of the songs on kind of my demos, and then worked to kind of those templates, and then got the better sounds going, things like that. So it felt like unfinished business, and he wanted to work with us again, and he said, right, come and do it properly. So we went over there, we found a little Airbnb close by, and we were there for about 2.5 weeks, I think. And it was a chance for us to visit Athens, Georgia as well. We were sort of big fans of REM and Pylon and bands like that. So it was really good experience actually going there, because it's quite an interesting place, Atlanta. It's got an up and coming feel, on the edges of it. It's and I found out later it's twinned with Newcastle, so there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
One track that stood out for me was the finger picking Armchair View.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which acoustic did you use on that?
Well, I've got a Martin. It's like a Martin guitar. In fact, it's here. I could probably show you. It's this very one. I'll tell you the exact model. It's It's a DC-16 RGTE. There you go, Dreadnought.
All right.
So that was the one that I used, and yeah, it's actually the first song we did for the record, and I wanted to do something quite different, for the band. So yeah, it was kind of written on that, so quite a thoughtful kind of piece.
You've got loads of bangers on there. Your own worst enemy, favourite songs. The end could be as good as start. In some ways, I think this is stronger than Nature Always Wins. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think probably in terms of songs that are probably more instant. Yeah, almost like slightly poppy in a way, I guess. But maybe that's down to we wrote it quite quickly, so it was a bit of a strange one because we booked a UK and European tour because you have to kind of get ahead of yourself because there's ever since kind of lockdown, there's this sort of backlog of people trying to tour. So you have to kind of get in early and get the dates in. So it was a bit like, slightly presumptuous that we would be ready with a record. So there was a bit of a deadline for us. So I think in some way that helped us, really focus and do things. Even with the record, we sort of kept it very simple in the way we recorded and very streamlined, I should say, rather than simple. We kept it streamlined. Yeah. So you can feel that on the songs. I think they're not sort of over egged or anything.
I'm going to stick my neck out and say to you, I think this is going to be a #1 album.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's nice to hear that positivity. So, well, you never know. Fingers crossed. We might get there one day.
You were born in Derby, but have Irish and Welsh blood. How important are these diverse roots to you?
Yeah, definitely. They're really important. I think that I think my mum as well, particularly, we've talked a lot more about sort of the Irish side of the family. So they're from Tuam in Galway originally, and yeah, I think having been there quite a lot more recently as I've been older, I've sort of felt more of a connection. I've sort of realized that, there's something here that I, perhaps there was something a little bit missing. So that it definitely felt like, and also musically, it has there's a deeper emotional sort of connection there. And I'm like, is that just the fact that it does that to you? Or is it the fact that I have, this sort of something in the DNA or something? But yeah, no, I'm definitely proud of the sort of Celtic roots and with the Welsh roots as well. And yeah, I think my mum said, my dad wanted me to have my name is Duncan Robert Lloyd, so it's all pretty Celtic.
Yeah. Were you from a musical family?
Well, my mum sung a bit she liked to sing kind of in choirs and things like that. My dad used to play guitar. He sort of played guitar. He's from Salford in Manchester, and he's passed away now. But he used to play sort of jazz guitar and liked a lot of kind of folk stuff as well. And he said they used to do these nights in Manchester in the '60s where there would be a comedian, a stripper, then a band, and then it would go around again all evening. And he said they'd start off playing jazz because they weren't allowed to play rock and roll. And then as the night went on and the main sort of owner would go off, they would then start playing rock and roll tunes, behind his back. So I think, he likes Chuck Berry and all that, and Buddy Holly. So he would play that stuff as well. But he became an engineer in the end. I think I think he sort of, I don't think he thought about doing it as for a career or anything,
You said in one interview that you're not musically trained. I know there are pros and cons to that. What is your view about it?
Yeah, I think in some ways, playing by ear or listening to, say, records where you find something exciting, and I don't always know necessarily what's happening chordally. I couldn't write that down, but I think that sense of not knowing is quite exciting because, again, you can go places where you think, well, I've made this up, and clearly, there's probably a name for the chord shape or or whatever you're doing. But I like the mystery of that. And sometimes it can be limiting sometimes when perhaps, luckily I know people who are musically trained and they'll go, well, that's maybe in this, that's in this key. Or, if we're trying to find, if there's we hit a little wall, you sometimes can use that theory to turn a corner. But most of the time I kind of, I sort of go, by ear and by instinct, and that kind of suits me, to be honest.
At some point, I understand that you moved from Derby to Newcastle. Was that because of the band?
Well, initially it was to study because I was an art student. I went to art college in Derby, and then I got an offer at Northumbria University. So I came up and I did 3 years as a fine art student. But then I did move away again, and I'd sort of formed relationships with other musicians here, and it was really later on that Tom actually rang me. I sent him a couple of songs. I think it was Graffiti and Going Missing that I'd written off the first album. And he just said, "You got to come back up. Let's try and do a band." And I was like, he said, he had a space in his flat, like two months rent free, because the guy who lived in the room had left, so it's paid 2 months and up sticks. So I just moved up to Newcastle, and we got it together, and yeah, the rest is kind of history, really.
Have you met Sting up that way?
Well, I haven't met Sting up that way, but we did support the Police at Twickenham, and I think Paul actually met him. I didn't. I sort of must have bypassed them all, but I was sort of hanging out with friends watching the Police. But yeah, Paul met him. He said, yeah, I had a good chat with him.
Maximo Park is named after a park located in Little Havana, Miami. I'm just wondering how that came about.
Well, I was watching a program about Cuba, and it was way back in. I was in another band at the time, and there was this domino park, and I think there was an original one that was in Cuba, which I think closed down. A very small park, but then the people who moved to Florida, I think refugees who'd sort of left Cuba and set up their own community there. They built this park, and it was, a domino park, and it's kind of, you could see it's where they were all, they talk about experiences and set the world to rights, that sort of thing, and it was, I just found it like a fascinating place that was quite, a place for thought, and there was this game being played. I just liked the atmosphere of this place, and I knew that the park was called Maximo Gomez Park, and obviously Gomez was already a band. So I was like, well, let's just call. I'd started a new musical project, and I put Maximo Park Project. I just had a name, and then it eventually turned into a band name, which the Archie's the bass player was like, oh yeah, that's a cool name. We should use that. So it was more just to kind of start a new thing. So but never actually visited it yet. So hopefully one day I'll see it.
Point. I'm fascinated, Duncan, by the place of trees in your life. Partly from that park, which you could say is some ways a starting point for your career, but also in your own videos, it's featured quite strongly. And on another occasion, you talked about when you feel a little bit uninspired or you're at home, that you like to go out to parks and look at trees. So,
yeah,
can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I was just by chance I came across this. It's like this old sort of kind of wisdom website thing, and it was talking about a lot of Native American tribes call trees the standing people. So, and there's something about. It sounds a little bit hippie-ish maybe, but I don't know. There's sort of a connection with them in. They're very much alive, and what they kind of do for us in keeping us alive, and everything. There's something just very peaceful just listening to them, and maybe it's because I'm very sensitive to the sound of them as well. Being a musician, I kind of they're just very peaceful and calming. So I find them, it's a place to sort of go and be. When things get a little stressful, it's a great place. And having a dog now, I'm just constantly walking through parks and things. But yeah, no, I find them just kind of a great, just a sense of relief when I'm amongst trees or nature. I just find it like it's kind of where we're meant to be. We've become a little bit too separated from it, so maybe it's some kind of nature calling in more of a spiritual sense rather than anything else. Yeah.
The videos to your songs, in fact, reminded me of Neil Young's Sugar Mountain. Is that song important to you? The video and the song?
Yeah, I don't know the video of Sugar Mountain, but the song, yeah. When I was 18, I got a Decade for Christmas, like on cassette. I got the double cassette or triple cassette, and That was yeah, that was a big song for me actually. That was yeah, I just love the melody and the sort of again, it's the visual that's, you know, creating this sort of um can't remember the name of, is it the Barkers at the fair and all your friends are there, and you know, yeah, the sort of like imagery of the balloons and things. Yeah, so yeah, I big Neil Young fan from when I was, you know, younger. So yeah, I do like that song.
You're,
Appreciate the
you're
comparison.
sorry, say it again.
I appreciate the comparison. That's nice.
You're incredibly productive person. I'd like to mention a list of your projects outside of Maximo Park, and if you could
Hmm.
briefly recap for us whether you're still very committed to these projects or do they have a future.
Yeah.
Decade in Exile.
Decade in Exile was kind of like I did it initially anonymously, so it was a little bit like a way of sort of doing something separate from the group that was almost away from the record industry, because at that point I think I'd felt it was a little bit overwhelming. So I was kind of a way to make music almost like secretly, and then it became a way of just you know, doing it. I kind of let the world know, okay, I'm doing this thing, but I kind of I stopped it, and it became, I just used the name as an EP. So I released what I'd released. Most of the stuff I'd released as Decade in Exile came out under my own name eventually on Reveal Records. So I've sort of stopped that for now. That's one thing I have parked. So
Okay. What about your work with Sarah Suri and Nino Kino?
so yeah, that's going really well actually. We're actually finally recording a record together. We're 3 songs in. So this year we've decided this is the year we're going to do it, but we're doing it properly in a studio as well. With, I think because we're doing everything ourselves, and she's a teacher as well, so she's sort of got a lot of things going on. We thought let's just go and get in the studio with the band, and it's a great little unit now. So yeah, that should be coming out hopefully end of the year or start of next year. So yeah,
Wow.
finally.
Look forward to that. What about your songwriting work with for soundtracks with Benson Taylor?
So I still do sync writing. I mean, with Benson, we just did that one project with him, so I know that he moves around quite a lot. I'm not sure he's either in the States or Italy. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was just one project we did together. So, but nothing since then. But I do a little bit of sort of sync work for, you know, writing music for TV and things like that.
You mentioned you did an arts degree when you were younger, and I know that you still paint and have exhibited your paintings. Where
Mhm.
where are you with that part of your life?
Well, I've got a little space in the house where I do them, and I've actually just started doing more sort of printmaking stuff. So I'm going to release a solo album this year, and with that I'm going to include some sort of prints that I've just been running off. So, and it'll come with a collection of EPs as well. So it's like a record with EPs and prints. So yeah, I'm sort of keeping that going, but the painting I think I probably will do more of, but maybe you know, when I'm less busy again. I kind of, when I have a little space, I'll go back to it.
And photography?
Yeah, photography's a little bit more sort of on my phone these days. I do a little bit, but not quite so much as I used to do a lot. But yeah, there's only so much, you know, you kind of have to pick your things with, and juggling a family and everything else. So there's there's only so much time I've got to do that.
I'm wondering about also your political activism. The last song on the album is Thatcher's famous phrase, "There's no such thing as society." And of course,
Yeah,
Maximo Park have been involved in political and social commentary before.
yeah.
What about your activism?
Well, I think a lot of one of the things we've all sort of found, and it could be to do with the age a little bit, is I think um, sometimes being online or being on social media can be quite overwhelming or a bit like an echo chamber. So for us, I think a lot of the way we feel politically is good just to put into songs in a way, because there's something a lot almost I don't know, it's almost the most natural for us thing for us to do as musicians. I think And things like going on marches and things like that, actually being present physically is something that feels, you know, and seeing other people, I think there's still such an important aspect to actually having that connection. You know, I think sometimes, you know, being online can feel like almost slightly overwhelming, and there's just loads and loads of voices, and a lot of the time saying the same thing. I mean, it's important to use it to get people together, you know, that's good. But I think doing something creatively or going out physically, I think that's important. Certainly to me, I feel more connected in that way. And I think each person has their own way of, you know, uh, being an activist if they choose to be, you know. But yeah, it's particularly important recently, I think, with things in the UK that people sort of came out and uh, had more of a unified voice together. You know, I think that's important. And yeah, I think the Thatcher thing definitely comes into Maxïmo Park's music quite a lot, being based in the Northeast. You know.
Well, we've been through quite a list, but have I missed anything? Do you have any other passions that we haven't talked about?
No, I appreciate it. I'm slightly embarrassed about it sometimes, but no, it's nice to sort of chat about all of that. And yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean the Maximo album's out the end of the month this month, so not long now, and then we're on tour. I've got I'll have a solo album out pretty soon, so that's yeah, there's some EPs on my Bandcamp as well. If you know people want to check that out, that's been happening. And yeah, hopefully, like I say, Nanokino end of the year next year. So there's quite a lot going on. So, yeah, hopefully people will find something in one of the projects.
I'm sure they will. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you today, Duncan. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise, yeah, no, thanks for yours. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the interview.
All the best.
Yeah, stay cool in Madrid.
Right.